There's something people rarely talk about. The most haunting part of aging isn't dying. It's the quiet fading while you're still here. We understand. We did everything we were supposed to, worked hard, raised our families, lived up to expectations. And then one day, the house goes quiet. No one calls your name. No one asks, "What do you dream about now?" Days start to blur. You look in the mirror and quietly wonder, is this all that's left of me? But here's what we've come to realize, and what we want to share with you today. You're not finished. You're just on pause. The brightest parts of you didn't vanish. They're just waiting for you to call them back. And maybe, just maybe, that invitation begins right now, in this very moment. The next chapters of your life are still yours to shape, not with something grand, but with one small thing that makes your heart smile. A morning walk, a letter to yourself, a thank you that was never said, a dream you once tucked away. We've spent so many years living for others. Maybe now is the time to live a little for ourselves, because you deserve a new chapter, one that's softer, richer, and full of light. And if you're still here, still listening, we believe that means you're ready. Mistake number 1, believing passion has an expiration date. Somewhere along the way, we were made to believe, not always in words, but in glances and silence, that passion belongs to the young. That once you reach a certain age, 60, 70, 80, you're supposed to put your dreams away, fold them neatly, and store them somewhere no one will see. But here's what we've come to understand. Passion doesn't disappear with age. It only fades when we stop feeding it. You used to come alive with a paintbrush, a song, a garden in bloom. You once wrote down dreams, not just to-do lists, but dreams that lit something in you. But over time, fewer people asked what you loved, and so perhaps you stopped asking too. But the flame inside, it never truly goes out. It simply dims, waiting for a little oxygen. And here's the beautiful part. It can still burn. It can still light up a room, starting with your own heart. We knew someone who picked up piano at 74. At first, every note was awkward, every tune uncertain. But he smiled and said, "This is the first time in my life I'm doing something purely for me." And that's one of the hidden gifts of growing older. You don't need to impress anymore. You're free to express. No more proving, just being. No more rushing, just returning to what you once loved, and maybe to what's still waiting inside you now. Because passion never had an expiration date. It just needed to be invited back in. Mistake number 2, depending emotionally on your children. You wait for a message, a call, a visit, something, anything to remind you that you're still in their hearts, because you gave them everything, your time, your energy, your love. And when the silence stretches on, it hurts. Of course it does. But here's the gentle truth. When your emotional world depends entirely on someone else, even your children, you unknowingly give away your peace. And your children, they love you deeply, but they're caught in the swirl of their own lives. And sometimes they forget how much you need to be remembered. That doesn't mean you are unloved. It means they're human. But you are not only mom, not only dad, you were someone before they came. And that someone still lives inside you, waiting to be rediscovered. Core insight. Love is not dependency. True connection is born from freedom, not guilt, not expectation. You deserve joy that doesn't wait for a phone to ring. You deserve connection that isn't dependent on someone else's calendar. This is not abandonment. It's not letting go of love. It's remembering that you are whole, even when you are alone. We met Clara last year. She was 76, widowed. Her 2 children lived in different states. They called, sometimes, but not often enough to fill the silence. She used to sit by the window, quietly hoping. Then one day, she joined a local storytelling circle. At first, just to listen. 2 weeks later, she stood up to read her own story, hands shaking, voice trembling, but her eyes glowing. People clapped. Someone cried. She turned to us and said, "I thought I had nothing left to give. Turns out, I still have stories, and people who need to hear them." Our deeper reflection as parents. If we could go back to when we first became parents, we wouldn't just give our children money or a house or a plan. We'd give them something stronger. The belief that love is not sacrifice, it's presence. That maturity doesn't mean success, it means wholeness. That joy isn't something to be earned later, it's something to feel now. Because yes, giving money is easy, but giving a child a framework of love and inner peace, that's the higher path. If we had known then what we know now, we would have taught our children that being deeply seen, heard, and loved is the greatest inheritance of all. And maybe this is still a lesson worth passing on even now. And now, we turn to you. If you could go back, what would you want your children to understand about love, about growing up, about what truly matters? If you've carried a lesson close to your heart, something you wish you had passed on, or maybe something you're just beginning to realize, we'd love to hear it. Because stories like yours, they don't just heal you, they light the way for someone else. Share your own belief, memory, or message in the comments. You never know who needs your voice right now. Mistake 3. Neglecting your body because it's too late. And there's a moment after a fall, a restless night, or catching a glimpse of yourself in the mirror when the thought quietly slips in. Maybe this is just how it is now. And that thought becomes a habit. You stop walking as often, skip your morning stretches, eat what's easy, sleep at odd hours, ignore the tightness, the twinges, the fatigue. But here's the truth. Your body hasn't given up on you. It's simply responding to the way you're showing up. And here's the beautiful part. The body, even in its 60s, 70s, 80s, still listens. It's not asking for punishment. It's asking to be loved again. The body is not your enemy. It's your most loyal friend, quietly carrying you through every storm. Source concept. Your body is a home, not a burden. Every gentle stretch in the morning is a declaration. I'm still here. Every walk around the block is a whisper. I still care. Every glass of water, every deep breath, every nourishing meal is a message to your soul. We're not done. A real moment and a reminder. We once met a woman named June. She was 81. After her husband passed, she stopped moving much, said her knees hurt, said it was too late to change. Then one day, her granddaughter invited her to a gentle chair yoga class just for fun. June went. She could barely lift her arms at first, but after 2 weeks, she smiled more. Her steps steadied, and one day she said, "You know, I think my body just needed to be invited back into my life." This isn't about chasing youth. You're not here to turn back time. You're here to honor the time you still have. This is about self-respect, about remembering that your body isn't just something you carry, it's carrying you. It's your home. And when you stop treating it like a burden and start treating it like it matters, something sacred returns. Energy, dignity, peace, and a quiet joy of still being alive. Because the greatest danger of neglect isn't the pain in your knees, it's what it tells your soul, that maybe you've stopped showing up for yourself. And now we ask you, what small act of care could you give your body today? A stretch, a walk, a glass of water, not because you have to, but because you matter. Or maybe a simple promise to stop calling it too late. We'd love to hear your story, your shift, or even your struggle, because your words might help someone else take their very first step. Every walk around the block is a whisper, I still care. Every glass of water, every deep breath, every nourishing meal is a message to your soul, we're not done. And here's a quiet but powerful truth. There is no clear, joyful mind inside a neglected, depleted body. A vibrant spirit needs a vessel that can still hold it. You don't need to be fast. You don't need to be flexible. You just need to be loving toward the one body that's carried you through a lifetime. Because the greatest danger of neglect isn't the pain in your knees, it's what it teaches your soul, that maybe you've stopped showing up for yourself. And even more, when your body weakens too far, your spirit dims with it. But the opposite is also true. A little strength, a little breath, a little stretch of love can awaken something much bigger inside you. Mistake number 4. Hoarding money, starving life. You spent your life working hard. You saved. You sacrificed. You said no to extras, no fancy trips, no new cars, no indulgent meals, so your future self would be safe and secure. And now the future has arrived. But instead of peace, there's hesitation. You look at your savings and think, what if something goes wrong? What if the money runs out? What if there's an emergency? What if I need long-term care? So you keep waiting. You keep saying no to joy, to comfort, to life. You tell yourself you're being responsible, but deep down, there's something else at play. Your inner world is still focused on lack, control, and fear. No matter how much you have, if your mind only sees what might be lost, you'll never feel safe enough to truly live. Money is not meant to protect you from life. It's meant to empower you to live it with quality, with peace, and with intention. So here's the invitation. Pause. Observe your spending. Ask yourself, is my money serving my life? Does it support your health? Does it help you eat better food, food that nourishes your body, not just fills your stomach? Does it make your relationships warmer, like treating your loved one to dinner, or buying a flight to see a friend? Does it help you rest better, breathe easier, sleep deeper? Because your money should reflect your values, not your fears. A simple shift. We've seen this too often. People spend 40 years chasing money and then 10 more years spending that money to fix their health. But here's the wiser path. Use your money now to support your well-being, not just your bank account. Plan wisely, save with awareness. But don't let your inner voice live in survival mode when your outer life has finally earned freedom. Let your retirement be defined by enoughness, not fear. By joy, not just safety. Because in the end, no one remembers how much you left behind. They remember how fully you showed up with your heart open and your life well lived. Now we invite you. What is one area where your money could serve you better? Your health, your joy, your relationships? Share it with us. Sometimes one small change in how we spend becomes a big spiel. You earned this life. Now let it feel like yours. Mistake number 5, thinking it's too late to start over. There's a quiet voice that begins to whisper as the years go by. Not loud, not cruel, just steady. It's too late. Too late to change. Too late to begin again. Too late to become someone new. We understand that voice. We've heard it too. It shows up when routines feel too fixed, when the world assumes we've already had our turn, when even we begin to believe that growth, joy, or adventure is for someone else, someone younger. But that voice, it's not the truth. It's just a habit, a quiet echo of fear. Because reinvention has nothing to do with age. It has everything to do with courage. Source concept. It's not time or age that limits us. It's the belief that we're no longer allowed to evolve. A story close to us. We once spoke with a woman who lost her husband after 50 years of marriage. She barely left the house for 2 full years. The grief sat in her bones. Her days were quiet, colorless. Then one morning, something inside her stirred. She told us, "I need people again." So she signed up to volunteer at a food pantry. She was 78. That first week, she cried in the parking lot. Too much anxiety, too much doubt. But by week 3, she smiled and said, "I feel more alive than I have in years." That's the power of starting over, not with drama, not with noise, but with a choice. A choice to stop waiting, to move gently, but forward. And now we ask you something we've had to ask ourselves too. Look around your life. Do you feel that what you have is what you truly want? If not, that's not a failure. That's a sign, a whisper from your inner self asking you to return. Instead of thinking the opposite of what you want, try wanting what you truly want again. Even now, even here, even with everything that's happened, because you are still becoming. As long as you're breathing, this story is still being written. And you get to write it not from your past, but from your possibility. And before you go, we just like you have wrestled with the doubt. We've wondered if our time had passed, if what's left is just about coping, not creating. But we've seen too much light still flickering in people's hearts to believe the story ends here. That's why we created Timeless Wisdom, not as teachers, but as fellow travelers, sharing thoughts, questions, stories, to remind each other that life doesn't expire when the world stops watching. If this message speaks to you, and if you've already subscribed to our channel, we invite you to leave a comment or share this video. Not for numbers, but because we know you're here, and your presence, your reflection matters. Tell us, what's one thing you've quietly told yourself it's too late to do, but still long for? A letter to someone, a hobby to revisit, a place to see, a part of yourself to reclaim. We would love to hear it, because sometimes your yes becomes someone else's permission. Mistake 6, living on autopilot. We wake up, we make the same coffee, we sit in the same chair, watch the same news, eat the same meals, go to bed and repeat. Nothing feels terribly wrong, but somehow nothing feels deeply right either. The days blur, the weeks vanish. We find ourselves asking, wait, What day is it again? That isn't just routine, it's erosion. And we know this not from theory, but from living it, because it's easy to fall into autopilot. It feels safe, predictable, and at a certain point in life, predictability feels like protection. But left unchecked, it quietly drains the color from our days, numbs our joy, shrinks our world. Autopilot living is not peace, it's quiet resignation, and your soul deserves more than maintenance mode. A small story that woke us up. One of us once met a retired teacher named Alan. He lived alone, followed the same routine for 9 years. Coffee, crossword, TV, dinner, sleep. Then one day, he was asked to tutor a child who couldn't read. He hesitated. It felt disruptive. But something in him said, try. That child changed everything. He told us later, I didn't realize how bored I was until someone needed me again. You don't need to move to Paris or climb a mountain. You just need to interrupt the script, walk a different path, try a new recipe, send a voice message instead of a text, switch chairs at the table, light a candle at lunch just because. These are not silly. They are soul signals, ways of saying, I'm awake, I'm still here. And even more than that, every small interruption is a quiet recognition. I still have choice. I still have agency. I still have value. Because doing something differently, however small, is how we remember that we matter. It's not about grand results. It's about reconnecting with your own aliveness. And before you go, we created timeless wisdom because we just like you have felt days go by without presence, without spark. We've mistaken routine for peace, when really it was just autopilot. But we've also learned, you are not your habits, you are your awareness, and awareness is the beginning of coming back to life. So today, we invite you, what's one small thing you can do differently just to remind yourself, I'm still here, I still count, I still matter. Share it with us in the comments. Sometimes the smallest shift you make becomes the strongest message to your soul. You are not forgotten, you are not finished, you are still valuable just as you are. Mistake 7. Clinging to draining relationships. Loneliness is real. We know that. We felt it not just as absence, but as a quiet ache that shows up in the middle of crowded rooms or familiar calls. So we get it. It's tempting to hold on to people simply because they've always been there. But here's the gentle truth. Staying connected out of fear is not the same as being truly connected. Maybe it's a friend you've known for decades who now only calls to vent, to gossip, to criticize. Maybe it's a relative who cuts you with small jabs and old expectations, but you keep showing up because they're family. But deep down, something in you knows, history is not harmony. Just because someone's been around for a long time doesn't mean they still belong in your sacred space. You are not obligated to shrink to maintain a connection. You are allowed to choose peace over tradition. We once spoke with a woman named Eliza. She was 73. She told us about a friend from church she'd known for over 30 years, someone who made backhanded comments, judged her choices, and made her feel small. When we asked why she still met her weekly, she said, because I don't want to be alone. Then she paused and added, but I always feel lonelier after we talk than before. That's when she knew the cost was too high. You are allowed to say, this no longer feels loving. That's not cruelty. That's self-respect. You're allowed to protect your energy, to seek out relationships that feel safe, kind, reciprocal. Because in this season of life, your soul deserves people who make you feel seen, heard, whole, not small, not silenced, not afraid. You didn't come this far just to keep shrinking for someone else's comfort. You came to reclaim your joy. And sometimes, that begins with letting go. And before you go, we the team behind Timeless Wisdom know this isn't easy. Letting go of old ties can feel like betrayal, but sometimes choosing peace is how you honor both yourself and them. So instead of asking for likes or shares, we invite you to pause. Gently, honestly, tenderly. Ask yourself, do my relationships reflect who I am now or who I used to be? Am I still clinging, or am I ready to soften and let life move through me again? And here's one more truth we've discovered. You don't need to chase love, approval, or connection. Just become a garden of joy, kindness, and presence, and the right souls will find their way to you. Every time you smile from the heart, speak with kindness, honor someone else's truth, or simply say thank you and mean it, you're planting flowers. And where there are flowers, the bees and butterflies always come. So water your joy, tend to your peace, speak beauty into the world, and trust the right people will arrive, gently and naturally. If this message resonates with you, feel free to share your reflections below. Not for us, but for those who may read your words and find the strength to bloom too. Because you're not here to beg for love, you're here to become it. Mistake 8, abandoning your spiritual self. There was a time we prayed not always with words, but with presence. We sat quietly in early morning light. We walked under trees and felt held. We looked at the sky and whispered things we couldn't name but felt were heard. We weren't religious always, but we were in relationship with something greater, with life itself, with meaning. But then, life happened. We lost people, faced illness, watched plans collapse, doubt crept in, softly but steadily. And somewhere in the fog of surviving, we stopped reaching. Not because we rejected it, but because we were tired, practical, distracted, focused on bills, routines, getting through the day, and the spiritual part of us faded into the background. But here's what we've come to learn. Your soul hasn't gone silent. It's just waiting for you to remember that it's still here. Spirituality doesn't need incense or temples. It doesn't need labels or rules. It doesn't even need to be understood. It just needs space. It's the stillness between breaths. It's the awe you feel when sunlight hits the water just right. It's the moment a child laughs and you suddenly remember joy is sacred. Core insight. Your spirit doesn't age. It simply waits with patience and love for you to come home. And now in this season of life, your spirit is not a luxury. It's a lifeline. Whether it's through a silent moment before sleep, a journal entry that begins, "Dear Soul," a walk through trees with no headphones, just breath, or a whispered prayer that says simply, "I'm still here." You don't need to get it right. You just need to return, to reconnect, to feel anchored again. Because the part of you that is spiritual has never stopped believing in your return. So today, we're not asking for a comment or a share. We're inviting you to sit quietly, just for a moment, and ask yourself, what still feels sacred to me? Where do I still feel alive, connected, whole? That question alone is a kind of prayer, and your willingness to ask it means your return has already begun. Mistake 9, believing there's nothing left to discover. One of the most dangerous lies we've been taught to believe as we grow older is this: the best is behind me. We stop expecting new friendships. We stop looking for awe. We assume life is now more about remembering than discovering. And slowly, we drift. Not into despair, but into a kind of quiet, settled pause. We get comfortable, but deep inside, something fades. Because here's the truth we've learned through our own lives. Discovery doesn't require youth, it requires presence. We, the team behind Timeless Wisdom, have felt this too. We've watched others slowly stop reaching forward, but we've also seen something beautiful. The people who stay curious, even in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond, glow with something almost childlike, but deeper. They have not stopped inviting magic. If you stop expecting wonder, you stop welcoming it. But wonder is still available to you. A quiet discovery. One of us recently met a man named Thomas. He was 82. He had spent a lifetime in science facts, structure, certainty. Then one day he bought a sketchbook. He couldn't explain why. He sat in the park for an hour and drew the same tree again and again. When asked what changed, he said, "For 80 years, I thought I understood how things worked. But today, I started to see how things feel." That was discovery, not of the world, but of himself. Life still has surprises for you. Not because you haven't lived, but because you have. And now, you're finally able to see things with the kind of attention that only wisdom brings. Ask yourself, when was the last time you felt surprised, truly surprised by something beautiful? It could be a bird you've never noticed, a scent that brought back a memory, a book that opened a door inside you, a sentence in a conversation that made you pause and breathe differently. And before you go, we're not here to tell you what to do. We're just here to say, please don't stop reaching. Don't stop noticing. Don't stop letting life speak to you in new ways. You don't need to travel the world. You just need to stay open to it. There's still magic. There's still firsts. There are still corners of your own heart you haven't walked into yet. And if you feel moved to, tell us in the comments. What's one small thing that surprised or delighted you recently, even just for a moment? Because when we share what lights us up, we remind others to look for light too. It doesn't always come with thunder. Sometimes it's just silence. A birthday with no calls. A doctor's visit that feels heavier than the last. A quiet afternoon when you suddenly realize you haven't felt truly alive in years. You catch your reflection in the mirror. You stare. And the question whispers the one no one wants to say aloud. Is this how it ends? But maybe, just maybe, this isn't the end. Maybe this is the awakening. Because you're not broken. You're not invisible. You're not too old. You're just untapped. You've been drifting, surviving, adjusting. But the steering wheel, it's still in your hands. And right now, this very breath, you can choose differently. You don't need a grand reinvention. You don't need a miracle. You don't need anyone's permission. You just need one honest moment of motion. One soft yes from inside. Start with something small. Call someone you've been missing. Walk a different street. Write down a dream you've kept hidden. Eat something not practical but joyful. Light a candle for no reason but peace. And if something stirred in you while hearing this, don't brush it off. Don't silence it. Name it. Write it. Speak it out loud. Because this flicker of aliveness is the beginning of healing. Not with noise, but with truth. You still have time. Not forever, but enough. Enough to create a memory worth holding. Enough to laugh again, really laugh. Enough to let someone love you, including yourself. Enough to begin, again and again. Please, don't let your final years be a quiet fade. Let them be the most conscious, the most courageous, the most unapologetically yours. We, the team behind Timeless Wisdom Channel, have felt all of this. The ache, the fog, the flicker. But we've also felt the turning point, and we're here to walk it with you. So now we ask gently, which mistake felt personal to you? And who do you know, a parent, a friend, a neighbor who might need this message too? Leave a comment. Share your story. Because when one of us speaks up, we all remember we're not alone. Let's turn these awakenings into a movement. Let's remind each other that one honest, brave moment, no matter your age, can bring you fully back to life.